Hi everyone. Now from this module, what we are going to learn how to write a research proposal, because actually whatever the course that you are following, it can be a master level or it can be the MPhil level or it can be the PhD level. You should know how to write a research proposal, because that is the initial part that you have to do before you write your research. So therefore, you have to have kind of a proper guideline how to write a research proposal. Right. So before we are going to write a research proposal, you should know what is a research proposal. Actually, in simple words, that means now you are giving kind of a document to your supervisor, and you're telling through this document that this is my title and why I have selected this title. That means kind of a justification why you wanted to do this topic that you explain, and also you're explaining what is your methodology. How are you planning to collect your information or data? Right? So that is you are including in a document. So simply that is we call it as a research proposal. So in a standard way, according to a proper definition, we can say what is a research proposal? A research proposal is a structured formal document So what is a research proposal? According to the definition, we can say a research proposal is a structured formal document that explains what you plan to research. That means your research topic and why it's worth researching, kind of your justification, your rationale, and how you plan to investigate it, your methodology. So when you're writing a research proposal, you have to include these three parts. Apart from that, there are some other elements that I will discuss later. But mainly, when you're writing a research proposal, you have to have kind of a strong topic, and then you have to include your justification, why you have selected this topic, and your methodology, right? So that is a research proposal. So when you're writing a research proposal, normally we encourage for the researchers to at least the length should be 4 to 8 pages length. If you take the A4 sheets, it can be 4 to 8 pages. So then according to that, you have to decide. Now, when you are selecting your topic, what type of a justification that you are including? It can be half of a page or nearly 3/4 of a page. Then your methodology and also the literature review also really needed. So according to that, 4 to 8 pages means you have to divide. According to your title, you have to give the proper amount for each section, right? That is how we write a research proposal. And when we get a research proposal, these are the main sections or the main elements that you have to include in your research proposal. The first one, you have to have a strong title. That is extremely important. Without having a proper title, you are not in a position to identify your correct area. So therefore, you have to have a proper title or a topic. So that is the most important thing. Sometimes we can say it is the crucial thing, which is really difficult because finding a good title is not much easy. You have to try your level best to find the proper title, right? So that is the first thing. Then apart from that, your research overview or your research content, in other words, maybe your justification or your rationale you have to include, and then your research questions and the objectives, that also according to your title you have to identify how many objectives that you're planning to take. And when you imagine, there are 4 objectives. So out of those 4 objectives, you have to identify which is your main objective and what are the other specific objectives. So for an example, if you have 4 objectives, so your main one objective, one main objective, and it can be 3 specific objectives. According to that, when you're writing your research questions also, 1 main research question and 3 specific research questions that you can include. And then your research methods, that means your methodology, significance of the research, and then your references. So then whatever the important things, the research overview, the research content, and all those things, even you can get it from the literature review. So of course, when you're getting your literature review, you have to have some sort of proper secondary information, secondary data. So you have to read very good research articles, journal articles, books, then different types of publications, reports, magazines, newspapers, like that way. Many more good secondary resources you have to collect. So from there only you can get your literature review part. And here I have just included, now when you write your research proposal, these type of things that you have to include. That means your background of the study, your research problem and the purpose, your questions and the objectives, your research questions and the objectives. So separately you can include your research questions and the research objectives. And then this is extremely important, your literature review. Right? So this is, imagine this is, if this is your research proposal, see the length is 7 pages, right? 7 A4 sheets. Now think, now for the background, in nearly you can take half of a page or 3/4. Then your research problem or the problem statement, half of a page or 3/4. Then when it comes to the research questions and the objectives, you can take 1 full page according to the number of objects that you have. Then the literature review, you have to have at least 1.5 to 2.5 pages because you're writing, your length is 8 pages. Then the research methodology and the design, you can have it with 1 page. And whatever the limitations that you're including, you can include it. And the references, maximum. Normally, the references, when you're taking these 4 to 8 pages, we don't include it there. Apart from that, you can include either according to the way that you have collected your secondary information. With that, you can include your references, right? So nearly 4 to 8 pages, you can write it for your research proposal. And when you're writing your research proposal, there are many more things where you can consider. So I have 2 PDF documents. So from there, you can get kind of a very clear picture. Now, this is Professor Chandra's document where you can refer it. It's extremely good. So it's not a very lengthy one, just 14 pages are there. So from there even you can get whatever the proper guideline. Before you write your research proposal, better you read it because you can get a very, very clear picture. Then you can have kind of a very clear plot. With that, you can write your research proposal. Right now here, clearly she mentions the way that you have to take your introduction, write a research proposal. Now see, there they mention, gives an opportunity to think through the project carefully and clarify and define what the researcher wants to research. So that is the most important thing. So you are the researcher. So therefore, clearly you have to identify what you want to research. Then you have to clarify it in a proper manner. Provides the researcher with an outline and to guide through the research process. lets the researcher, supervisor, and the department or faculty know what she would like to research and he or she plans to go about it. Helps the department choose an appropriate supervisor. So this, after when you're writing your research proposal, you're giving this to the supervisor. So if you get a very supportive, understanding supervisor, it's very easy for you to continue your research, right? So that also really needed. And when you're writing your research proposal, similar way like what I have mentioned here, even she has explained everything in a proper manner. What are the components that you have to include in your research proposal? Essential components of a research proposal. So you have to have kind of a proper introduction. First section. Now, in your first section, in introduction, it normally comprises two parts: the background of the study and the rationale. Rationale means, in other words, your justification, right? So what you have to write, your background of the study and the rationale, why you want to do this, why you have selected this topic, right? So you have to give that as your introduction. There you have to mention, create reader interest in the topic. These things you have to include. Broad foundation for the problem. And you have to think about your specific audience. So background of the study you have to include, and the purpose and the study of the rationale you have to include. Very clearly she mentioned how the way that you have to take it and all. So similar way you can read and get the very, very clear picture, right? And how the way that you are including your justification. Then this is the most important thing, the review of literature. That is also really needed. A review should indicate what work has been done before in relation to the present problem by other researchers. So actually, after when you select your topic, you have to identify so far what are the documents that you can get from the other researchers which related to this topic, right? So that you have to gather all the information. Before commencing the study, researcher should satisfy himself or herself that she is familiar with previous and current literature related to the problem. This is extremely important because you can't just do a research. So you have to have a proper idea. After when you have selected your title, through the secondary information, through the other researchers' facts, you have to have kind of a very, very clear picture. This activity prevents replication of studies in addition to helping the researcher to refine his research questions and the methodology. Otherwise, maybe you will just repeat the same thing, because always remember, when you're doing a research, it should be kind of a thing where you have to identify the new knowledge that is extremely needed. Identifying new knowledge is very, very needed. So for that, you have to have an idea what are the things that they have done up to now which related to your topic. So then when you get kind of a very clear picture, it's very easy for you to go further. The review of literature provides the background and the content for the research problem. It should establish the need for the research and indicate that the writer is knowledgeable about the area. So it is extremely important. This literature review, you have to read and understand what are the things that you're talking about, and you have to get kind of a very clear picture, because if you get kind of a very clear picture, it's easy for you to carry all those things, right? So then they say it shares with the reader the results of other studies that are closely related to the study being reported. According to your one, it should be closely related to your study. It relates a study to a large ongoing dialogue in the literature about a topic, filling in gaps. And the other one is your research gaps and extending prior studies. It provides a framework for establishing the importance of the study as well as a benchmark for comparing the results of a study with other findings. So these things you have to be really sure after when you select your title, after when you finish reading all your literature review, you have to identify it correctly. It frames the problem earlier identified. So literature review is extremely important to get a very, very clear picture. Then you can make your research questions and the research objectives. So always remember, after when you write your research objective, the similar thing, you can make it in the question form. Then that will be your research question. So I will show how the way that we are getting that as well. So for an example, look, now see here, this is your objective. The objective of this study is to find out whether the performance of children from poor families is lower than that of children from rich families. So that is your objective. Always remember, when you're writing your objective, always you have to write with to find, to estimate, to investigate, to evaluate, to understand, to assess. Like that way, always we write the objective like that way. So then the same objective, you can make it to the question form. See the question. Is the performance of children from poor families lower than that of children from rich families? So you can convert that to the same way, right? So then imagine you're going to write your hypothesis with that. So similar way, you can include your hypothesis also like this. See, children from poor families. Now this is, you can take it. Now we know when we write the hypothesis, there are two hypotheses, the alternative hypothesis and the null hypothesis. So this is how we are taking the alternative and the null hypothesis. Null hypothesis, always remember when we use the word null, no. So always you take it with no any difference, no any connection. There is no difference in the performance of children from poor families and children from rich families. So that is your null hypothesis. And your alternative hypothesis, there is a difference in the performance of children from poor families and children from rich families. So that means from the same setup, you can make all three. That means first you have to prepare your research objective. From the research objective, you can prepare your research question. From the research question, you can prepare your hypothesis. I think it's very clear for you, right? Then the methodology. So in the methodology part, now remember you're including your tentative methodology because you do not know whether you're going to use it actually. When you're doing your research, sometimes you can change your methodology. So that tentative methodology, you have to include what is your data collection methods, whether you're going to use the questionnaire, that means through a survey, or maybe the interviews method, or maybe you're using the case studies, or maybe you're taking the observations, or whether is it the quantitative data you're going to collect to see the quantity of it, or whether you're going to take the qualitative data to see the quality of it, or are you going to use both quantitative and qualitative, and whether you're going to use only the primary data. The primary data means the researcher is collecting data, or only the secondary data where the other researchers and all the other resources from there, whether you're going to collect. So like that way, all those things very clearly you have to mention under this methodology part. So these things should be there when you're writing your research proposal, and then you're analyzing tentative methods, whether you're going to use the SPSS or whether you're using the ANOVA test or kind of a regression. All those things even you have to include, and then the significance of study. Now there you have to answer for these questions. So when you're going to answer for these questions, easily you can identify. When thinking about significance of the study, the researcher can ask him or herself the following questions. What will results mean to the theoretical framework that framed the study? What suggestions for the research arise from the findings? What will the results mean to the practitioner? Then will results influence programs, methods, or any other thing? And what is your contribution? Will results influence policy decisions? What will be improved or changed as a result of the proposed? Then finally, the implementation. So if you can answer these questions, then easily you can see, okay, these are the things that I'm going to look from this. So always remember, according to that, if you take, easily you can identify your framework and the limitations as well, right? Simply the limitations means we call it as the weaknesses, right? The limitations or the weaknesses on what the researcher could or could not achieve are noted here. Maybe there is a time factor. All those things you can include, or maybe due to the money issue, or maybe some sort of data availability is not there. So all those things that you can include it there as your limitations. Then the time schedule, how the way that you're going to do your, what is your time plan, that you can make it in your research proposal. And finally, the very, very important thing is your references. So you have to include all your references from where you have taken it, and then you have to use it in a proper referencing style. Normally we use the APA, or else you can take the Harvard. Whatever, in a proper way, you have to include your referencing as well, and make sure when you're writing your literature review part, you have to include all your citations as well. That part also really needed, right? And I will just show you one part, how the way that we can include the citations and the references. Right, I will show you how can we use the references and the citations. Right, I think you can see my Word document page. So first what you have to do, you have to go to the references. When you go to the references, so you click here, references, right? So that is the first thing. Then you have insert citation. I'm going to add new source, right? Then you will get kind of a table. There you have to select what type of source. I'm going to take it from a book section. I have selected book. Then I'm going to write the name. I will just take kind of the fake information, John Max. Then the title of the book I will take, Basic Research Writing. Research Writing. Then the year I will take 2021. And the city I will take Colombo. And the publisher, I'm just taking ABC publisher. Right. So when I say okay, you will get my citation, right? See, Max 2021. So that's the way we include the citation. Imagine you want to include this citation again. You go to this place, then it appears what we have saved it. So again, you can take it. Imagine you have to include another source. So then you go to add new source. Now this time I'm going to take it from a journal article, right? So I have selected journal article. So I'm going to get my name as Anne Herrera, right? The title I will take Basic Research Handbook. Then the journal name I will take the Research Journal. And the year I will take 2022. And the number of pages I'm taking 450. So when I give OK, yes, it appears, right? So again, if you really want to include it, what you have to do, you go there, then 2 are there because we have saved 2, it appears, right? So that is the way we include the citation. After that, when you want to include the reference, first you go to your style, reference style. Imagine I'm going to take the Harvard, you select the Harvard. If you have to take it the APA, then you select the APA from there, right? So whatever, no problem. Then here you have the bibliography. So you select bibliography, right? Then you will get 3 parts, bibliography, references, and the work cited, right? So from there, you select the references. Then you will get your reference. Imagine now here I have taken APA. Imagine you want to take the Harvard. When you change the Harvard according to that, you will get the different way. But it's not a huge difference, just kind of a slight difference, you will say. So this is how we are including the references as well, right? And from here even, you will get kind of a clear picture. How do we write the research proposal and what are the elements should be there in a research proposal? See, the title should be there, introduction should be there, literature review, methodology, and your plan, how the way that you're going to do it, and your budget, right? So all those things you have to remember when you're writing a research proposal, right? Thank you very much.